All right, guys, here we are. Pretty long day today. Not really working, just kind of catching up on errands, like, getting diapers for Nico at Target. I like to get things in like bulk supply so that I don't have to go out too much. And recently I'm really like trying to figure out how to structure my days better. I think a good way to do that is to like write myself notes. Like, make a shampoo bottle disappear in your asshole at 4 o'clock, and then I might do it. I dare you. You won't do it. You're a bitch if you don't do that. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that, and then I just do it. I have no idea why I say stuff like that. It's just something that I do. But anyway, so so last night I got a pretty decent offer. Like, I got a writing offer to write a screenplay. Seems like I'm getting more of those recently, which is good because I was trying to make that happen for so long, and I turned it down because of Patreon and YouTube. Basically because of Patreon. I just said, no, I'm already having trouble juggling all these different projects, so I decided to focus more on this because I do enjoy this community, and I'm trying to develop it more. I think one way to manage my time better, and it's like a weird dynamic because essentially I'm an entertainer, like a dick sucker. No, that's more of like an athlete. I'm more like a clown. Back to that shit, huh? And usually people aren't self-deprecating. People never admit that they have a small dick and bomb personality, which I do. Hi. Hey, I'm Ryan. Bomb dick. What if you said that? You'd probably get arrested. Bomb sex offender. All right, anyway. So, I think one of the ways that I'm going to be able to manage my time better is to delegate responsibilities. So, like, I heard from Tony, Anti-Heroes it's coming to an end. It's like ready to come out. That's good. Drug Stories for Truckers got rejected by the distribution channels, because they didn't believe that, like, I had skits from the celebrities, like Johnny, all these people, because I guess it's common in the music world to say, like, featuring Snoop Dogg, but Snoop Dogg's not in it. It's just some guy that didn't even sound like him. It's like some gospel singer. He's like, yeah, dude, that's Snoop. And so it's like, the whole thing is to get you out there more. Like, lie, get you out there. My dick's this big. Come look. Hey, it's actually small. Shut down. They don't do that anymore. So I got rejected. They're like, you're nobody, punk. I was like, oh. So I'm kind of dealing with that. Secondly, I have a new album. I have like 2 new albums, really. So I've been wanting to release a Mike Virgin album for a while. Just like a definitive, that's it, last one, with some surprise stuff in there. And it looks like that's like gonna be done fairly soon, like within the next few days. I never like to say release dates for stuff anymore because I just seem to not do them when I say that I will. Not because I don't want to, it's just because I don't know, I guess it's a confluence of factors why I don't do stuff that I say. My word's poo-poo, I guess, is what it comes down to. So delegating responsibilities out to other people, and I've been talking about it for a while. My nonprofit, the Paul Project's gonna come through at some point soon. I'm not sure how long it takes. I did register for my prison reform nonprofit a few years back, and I think it took 8 weeks. That's what I remember. I'm not sure if that's an accurate number, but I paid for the most expensive package on LegalZoom. You get a dick shot for $600 of some older guy that works at LegalZoom that is usually naked with a stapler, and it's legal. Zoom.com. Links in the bio. No, just kidding. Don't you hate when people do that shit? Yeah, I use Irish Spring. Links in the bio. They're getting paid like $40 to say that. I remember when I got a porn sponsorship, like I forget what it was called, but YouTube like suspended me and shit for it. It's funny. It seems like so long ago and it really wasn't. So when the nonprofit comes through, I've said all along, we're going to have a representative for each state. And I'd say you probably have to live there for it to happen. I know that, like, Sam, for instance, is in Canada. Definitely sponsors get first dibs. Like Danny, Wisconsin, definitely first dibs there. You know, if I know somebody that's in a particular state already, if you're on the sponsor tier, you get that if you want. And I need one person, but beyond that, if you don't want that, if you're sponsoring, you don't want to be a representative, I don't know, maybe we'll have like an election process. And we'll have to show each other our private parts. We're like, yeah, this is mine. Let me see yours. You're hired. Then I get Me Too'd. What about you two? What about you too? I'm like going skiing with Kevin Spacey. He's like, fuck, can I grope you? I'm like, if you have Cash App. He's like, I don't fuck with that app, bro. Kevin Spacey's a fucking piece of shit, isn't he? I think he did it. That's what I think. So anyway, I need to have one person that's essentially the president of the nonprofit. I'm willing to pay a salary. Of course, like the salary would come from the donations, but I have some philanthropists that are willing to put money into it. It's like a real thing. You know, this isn't something that I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to do a couple raffles and just like scam people. I know that I've been accused of that and I broke my hand because of that. My hand is actually feeling a lot better. It doesn't look better. It's like fucking healed, but I haven't been working out and that's what kind of led to the depression stuff that happened recently. But I'm feeling way, way better. Another thing was just like getting away from like such the dark stuff and like going back to these times for this series. I don't know why I did that. I have the whole month to like develop all the other storylines, and I absolutely promise that I will. I just need to like, I need to finish this, and then I need to delegate those responsibilities, like for the Narcan project to other people. That'll be a salary job though, and I'm like talking about like decent money, you know, like more than I make. And that will be coming. I mean, when you have a nonprofit, it gets audited. You have to play by the letters of the law. What'd you spend this $15,000 on? Was it Narcan? No, it's Polaroid dick shots of former presidents. Who doesn't do that? You think there's people that do that? There's like a collection of like presidential dick shots? Probably. People are just fucking weird shit. I talked to Will De Los Santos last night. You know, someone's gonna be like, oh, go ahead, say he wrote Spun. He did. I mean, a lot of you guys are degenerate drug addicts, and you've seen it. So that's why I say it. This, you know, and that guy is fucking class. I gotta get him on my channel. He is such a weird dude. He's pretty classic though. Like, just he's always got these like schemes and shit that he's doing, like legals. You know, he's always like, this is it, bro. We're gonna start, you know, growing rare gems in like caves that will manufacture out of clay or like weird shit like that. I'm like, all right. So I'll try to get him on there. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm feeling better, feeling like my old self. Turned down a legitimate offer to write a film. I just didn't want to juggle anymore. I want to like stay with what is working. I feel I owe that to you, and I'd like to follow through with what you want, because I'm a bitch. If you say it enough times, it's true. All right, let's get into the story. So where we had left off last time, I'd gotten into shooting cocaine. I mean, this is right after I'd met Adam McGinnis, and I realized that some of this stuff is going to be overlap. Same with the Florida story, and I think that it was important to go over the Florida stuff again, because I was talking about stuff that happened before and after. It's not that I like ran out of material and I wanted to like, you know, squeeze the suds out of that old rag of a story. Mike Virgin's my personal favorite. And I just felt like, because we were exploring the beginning and the what happened after, it was important to go over that stuff. So this is going to be similar. I'm not going to go like fully into certain stuff, but you're going to hear new stuff right now from this time period that, you know, I think are pretty classic stories. I definitely don't think I told them, but, you know, my memory's fucked up. So anyway, so I had gotten into coke, like, really, really bad. I was already doing heroin. And remember I'd said, like, Jenny, she was definitely an addict, but she wasn't, she had that whole thing where, like, she thought heroin was, like, just the worst thing ever. But somehow cocaine was acceptable. And the irony is that I think cocaine affects my life. Hold on, I'm plugging my phone in. I think cocaine affects my life in a negative way. Hold on, let me make sure that this is, damn, I can't see if this is working or not. I hope that my battery, stays in. I can't tell if it's charging or not. It was on the battery. So if this cuts out, I'm sorry. Damn it. And I feel like if I get out of the video, it'll cut it off. So anyway, so that's kind of why I got into coke, is because she was really tripping on the heroin. When we were living in motels, she would find it in my pocket. You know, at first I wasn't, oh yeah, honey, I'm going to quit. I'll get a job selling AstroTurf. I'll wear collared shirts. And I'll give up heroin. We'll have children someday. And she's like, okay. She didn't talk like that. That's all right. I love her. God bless her soul. Love her. It's my baby. But when she would find heroin back then, because I was more reckless, she would literally call the drug dealers and say, hi, this is Ryan Leone's girlfriend. It was almost like Chris Hansen busting someone. Like, hi, what are you doing selling my boyfriend heroin? Like, she's calling like hardcore essays. They're like, hey, excuse me? And I'm gonna be completely honest with you, kinda. I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know no Ryan. Southsiders always confuse Ryan with Brian. I don't know Brian. I don't know no fucking white boy named Brian. Get the fuck out of here, bitch. And then like hang up on her. And so she would threaten these people. She'd be like, listen, if you sell him heroin again, I'm calling the police. I'm going to tell them you're a drug dealer. Well, that didn't really go over well with my drug dealers. They were like, well, this isn't worth selling drugs to. I mean, you have a crazy girlfriend that's going to call the cops if she finds out that I'm selling you stuff. So we're not going to do that anymore. So I had to start getting very, very secretive. You know, a lot of times I'd hoot my drugs. A lot of times I'd hide it, you know, like in the toilet paper dispenser, whatever the case. It was clandestine. Or clandestine. I don't know. I always mispronounce words because I learned them reading. But it was secretive. Why didn't I just say that? Because I try to sound like some smart fuck, and I'm not. Read books in jail. So, you know, I regret this, definitely. Like, I can look back, and in hindsight, I've realized that this was definitely not a good thing to do. But I figured if I fueled her cocaine addiction, if I just let her go balls to the wall, then she would be less attentive to what I was doing, and then I could just be a junkie, and I wouldn't have to sell AstroTurf. I could sell heroin. And I'd still wear polo shirts. Just be like a super polite heroin dealer. Says please and thank you. Even if people die. And call their boyfriend, you're like, yeah. Please don't tell anyone. Thank you. That's the only, okay, that was a really not very funny joke. Okay, so anyway, I had moved into this guy Preston's house because he was in jail. He was an only child. I met him when I was 12, and he was like a social outcast at that private Catholic school I was at. He was into horror films, and that's really the only thing we had in common back then. I'm 12 years old, and we would talk about horror movies. He liked Jason, and I liked tits. I was like, I just like boobs. I don't really like the horror, but I like seeing tits. And he was like, but Freddy Krueger just fell bomb. You know, he didn't really talk like that, but you know, he liked it legitimately because he liked the horror, and I guess eventually I started liking that stuff too. But I really was in for the boobs and the butts. Sorry, I just kind of went back to memory lane for a second there. I was thinking about all the boobs and asses I've seen in 80s slasher films. So he had grown up kind of, you know, I mean, I'd say that I probably grew up faster than him in the sense that I was like having sex way before him. I was into hard drugs way before him, but eventually he caught up to that. By this point in his life, I was 21. He's probably like a year behind me. So he was like 20, and he was making fake IDs. That was like his hustle. You know, he always had these like really sophisticated hustles, like really, really sophisticated stuff. You know, I don't even want to go into some of the things that he was doing because he never got caught. But the one thing that he did get caught for that I can talk about is that he was making fake IDs. And we used to hang out with this tweaker kid. He used to come over to his house. And he had this kind of parents that really didn't, you know, give a fuck what he was doing. When we were kids, we played with firecrackers, and they were like, that's funny. When we were older, we were smoking crystal meth. They're like, that's a gag. You're like, okay. And then he started going to jail, and then they got mad. They're like, wait, what? And it's like, well, I mean, you didn't care that he was smoking meth, and now he's in jail. Sorry to say, that's a natural consequence from crystal meth. That just is what happens. You smoke meth for long enough, you'll probably go to jail. Or you're good at telling on people, which is pretty common in that world. And so, you know, he had to go to jail. And again, his dad was like oblivious as to what was going on. And I talked about in the other video, motels were getting hot for me. You know, it was like I was getting pulled over all the time. So it was nice to have a home base. Now, because Jenny was like going down the tubes on coke, and she was just snorting it. And I couldn't snort. I had to smoke it. I had to shoot it. I had to boof it. I never boofed coke. Get a numb asshole. Sounds crazy. But, you know, I'd shoot it, and I talked about, like, it was just a very dark time because I get these audible hallucinations of, like, demons screaming and feel like you were being plunged into the fiery pits of hell. And then you'd pay money to do it again. But it was awesome. I'm going to do that again. But you're miserable the whole time. You're pale. Your zits look like they're decaying. Your zits look like dead possums or something. They're like discolored and look like death. Look like shit. I look like a mugshot. Like a pixelated mugshot. I didn't even look real. I looked like a fucking piece of paper. I was like, you know, just walking around like that. Preston's dad would he was just so like out of touch. He didn't even know what was going on. He'd like bring us, he'd be like, hey, do you guys want some barbecue? And I'd have like a needle dangling in my arm. I'd be like dying. And I'd be like, Doug, I don't eat anymore. That was his dad's name. Doug would be like, okay. He's like all campy and cheery and shit. So he left. And it was at that house when I was into cocaine that I really started going into like bad psychosis. Really bad psychosis, like the kind that I would talk about in Wasting Talent, where two trips. There's two fucking things that I trip on. Law enforcement and my girlfriend cheating on me. I always was on the trip that my girlfriend was cheating on me. Always. The cat right there. You know, totally like irrational fears, right? And I'd start asking her questions. And then, like, putting together clues. Like I was in some detective novel or something. I'd be like, have you ever fingered a chick? She'd be like, yes. I'd be like, who? She'd be like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, okay. And then I'd ask her again. And then these sort of things would, like, loop in my mind, and I'd try to crack the case, you know? I'd be like, okay. She said that she fingered a girl, and she said she didn't want to talk about it. She said she didn't want to talk about it twice, and 2 is obviously emblematic of B. B is the second letter of the alphabet. So if you have B, it puts it in a very small suspect pool of guys that start with the letter B, because when she says girl, she really means that she's getting fingered by guys, and the guys that she was getting fingered with are the same guys that she's most likely to be cheating on me with. I think it's probably Brian, Barry, Billy, Bobby, or Booby. And if I had to guess, it'd probably be Booby. The problem with this is that I would fucking say it out loud. Like, the kind of stuff I'm telling you right now, I'd, like, say it to her. I'd be like, 4 plus 3 is 7, and you do this, and 7 minus 8, and you were born in 1980, and 1980 is the year of the cheating with Booby, and you're a fucking bitch. Freak girls the fuck out. Freaked me the fuck out. Like, I would say these things out loud. I could hear myself say them. It's almost like watching a comic bubble come out of my mouth. And I would just think, like, Jesus Christ, man. You sound like a fucking rapist or something. Like, the kind of things that I was saying is the kind of shit that, like, you'd imagine some, like, really scummy, like, alley creature. Like, the guy that has, like, gloves with holes in it that, you know, like, the fingers pop out. He's, like, beating off with, like, the only skin he has. That kind of shit. You're probably like, well, Ryan is, he seems awfully weird tonight. And that's not it. I'm just trying to really, like what I usually do, I'm trying to illustrate what it was like in my mind at that time. Because I was going through extreme psychosis. I would pace in the middle of the street in my boxers. And I would walk from one side of the sidewalk to the other. It's in a residential suburban neighborhood in Santa Barbara, California. It's a picturesque town where nothing bad ever happens. Convinced the police were coming. And thinking that me pacing, probably the most conspicuous fucking thing I could be doing, somehow I'd like be ahead of the curve. And when you're in a state of psychosis like that, you're pacing from sidewalk to sidewalk. You're looking both ways. It's almost like ritualistic. It's like some OCD shit. Like you go across the street and you turn your head. Then you walk to the other side, turn your head the other side. But you don't dare look while you're walking. It's like if you make eye contact, you'll be arrested or something. But there are no police. These are all phantom problems. And I was just really going crazy, you know? Sometimes, I'd like trick Jenny and I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna go to the store and get cigarettes. She's like, okay. And then I would just walk outside, crawl back in, and listen under the door crack and think that I heard whispering. Sometimes I would think that I would hear the bed creaking, the springs, like she was getting ass fucked by some alley bum or something. And I'd like burst in there. I'd be like, where's Booby? And she'd be like watching TV or something. And she'd just be like, oh my God, are you tripping again? And oftentimes she'd have to apologize for my behavior. I started accusing Preston's dad of sleeping with her. And I'd ask him, trying to act like I'm not in cocaine psychosis. I haven't been up for 4 days. Hey, Doug. It's like, yeah, Ryan. I'd be like, hey, man. I just got to know. I don't mean offense by this, but I want to know. Have you ever fucked Jenny? Like recently, like while we've been dating? Swear to God you get a pass if you tell me that you have. And he's chirpy. He's like a happy guy. He's probably on Prozac or something. No, Ryan, I've never had sex with Jenny. I'm in my 60s. Like, what's that supposed to mean, Douglas? And then, she'd come in and she'd be like, all right, sorry, Doug, he's having some sort of manic episode. And Doug would be like, he's like laughing. It was an awkward thing. Like, he knew, he had to have known that something was weird. I mean, I would leave bloody napkins like on the kitchen floor because I'd be like shooting up in the kitchen and just like wipe my arm and like throw it on the floor. or he'd like come home and I'd be naked except for black dress socks, and I'd be looking out the curtain, like trying to, like, I know he was there. I'm just in the curtain. He can see me. My fucking body is like, you can see like the shape of my body, and you just see these like bare legs and black socks. And I'd just be like super still, but you know, coke, you get like bubble guts. So I'd like be still, and you just hear, and then I'd like hold my breath because I was like so scared that the fart was going to bust me. But he never said anything. He was a good sport about it. So around this, so that's the condition I'm in, right? Around this time, I started working. So when I had met Adam, and I got that business card, and I thought that was going to be like my ticket into the industry. I sent him an email, and I told him about this idea that I had for the film that I wanted to make with Paul all that time, about like going cross country, and this was going to be, I mean, I wrote it, it sounded interesting. You know, this was going to be some counterculture phenomenon. We're going to go cross country, and I'm going to do drugs. And, you know, Paul and I had this idea where I was going to be crucified with coke and heroin at the same time. And maybe I'd die, maybe I wouldn't, but it would be footage either way. And we were just like so fucking stupid at the time. We were dead serious. We thought that like people would like that kind of stuff. And so I'm like writing him this kind of stuff. I'm putting like in parentheses, I'm explaining the crucifixion scene, like how this is very important to the project. He wrote me back like a very short email, and he basically said, yeah, if you have more footage like Paul getting burned, I'll buy it. Thanks, Adam. I'd tell Jen, I'd be like, you know, he didn't mention the crucifixion thing in the project, so I'm just going to go ahead and assume that he liked it quite a bit. He didn't say no. He didn't say no. And then I'd like accuse Jenny of fucking booby or something. So now I realized that the only opportunity I really had with him was to sell footage. So where could I get footage? Well, I was hanging out at the time with a group of people that were kind of in like the amateur professional skateboard circuit. I grew up around a lot of pro skaters and stuff. I was into skateboarding. A lot of my friends were sponsored. I had friends that were AMs on companies, shorties. I knew like a few people from that team. And that, like back in that time period, like probably from like 98 when Fulfill the Dream, if you into skateboarding, when Fulfill the Dream came out, that was a local video for us, but it kind of became an international phenomenon. Like those guys became really famous. I knew most of those guys on a personal level, and I was hanging out with them. They had introduced me to a guy named Eric Hatch. Eric has never really understood me. He's a nice guy, but he thinks I'm just an absolute piece of shit. Which I probably was at the time, you know, but I needed a videographer. I needed somebody that had footage. And so some of my friends that were pro skaters introduced me to Eric Hatch. Eric Hatch had filmed Fulfill the Dream. So Fulfill the Dream was a skateboarding video that came out in 1998. Absolutely iconic. I don't know. If you're not into skateboarding, I don't think it would mean anything to you, but I watched that thing on VHS hundreds of times. This is before I knew the guys that were in it. And like a couple years later, I met them. And back then, those were like the only famous people I knew, or at least in my mind, they were famous. And I was just like so kind of enthralled by the whole thing. I just thought that it was the coolest. Like these guys got free clothes and they like traveled to Japan. They smoked crack. No, they didn't smoke crack, but that was me. I smoked crack. But later, yes, these guys all got into shit like that. But, you know, we were all kids, you know, and they grew up in our hometown, and they were just kind of like hometown hero type guys. So these guys introduced me to Hatch. Hatch at the time was, he had like a little production company in Santa Barbara. It's actually a really cool setup. It like had this basement that you could go down into. He sat in there and he edited skateboarding films. Now, after Fulfill the Dream, he still filmed a lot of stuff. There's a skateboarding shop in Santa Barbara called Church's Skating. So it's kind of like Church's Satan, but it's Church's Skating. Clever, I know. And he was kind of just, I don't know. I mean, what do you do when you're like, what was he like? Probably like 30 years old. I was 21 and he was trying to make skate videos still. And Fulfill the Dream was so incredibly successful. Like, if you're into skateboarding, you know that that was one of the most iconic films of the 90s. And that was like my hometown. That was like my group of friends. I mean, a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them I knew well. So I got introduced to him, and basically I asked him, I'm like, hey, do you have any footage? Now, the condition I'm in is absolutely delusional, crazy psychosis, staying up, pacing, accusing Jenny of cheating on me, accusing one of my best friend's dads of fucking my girl. Like, and that's awkward, you know? And he would just be, no, I didn't do that. You know, he's just happy as fuck. I don't know, maybe he just didn't know that I meant, did he, you know, I don't know. I don't know what he thought. Thinking maybe he just knew that I was fucked up. Maybe he just needed the money. I don't know. You know, I was renting that area of the house. So when I meet Hatch, I explained to him what I got going on. I just met Adam. I got a connection at Spike TV. I want to buy footage from you that's considered crazy footage, stuff that would be like on Ridiculousness, right? So he had a bunch of shit, man. And he's been putting out, if you're into Shorty's Fulfill the Dream, check out, he's got a YouTube channel called Hatch Media. He's been putting up a bunch of like extras from that time era. And for me personally, I really like that stuff. Someday I'd love to write, or like maybe do a documentary about that whole company and everything. The owner just died recently, I think of a heroin overdose. It's just really interesting story, I think, but it's for another time. So he gave me like footage of fighting, footage of security guards kicking skaters out. I mean, he had interesting stuff. So now I had a bunch of things to show Adam. So I used to go down to LA and go to meetings with him. Now, remember, I have the dead possum acne. I smell like a piece of shit with little chopped up pieces of onion on it. BO and shit. I don't know why I smelled like shit. I just did. So Adam would literally say stuff to me like, hey buddy, lay off the drugs and take a goddamn shower. He was like a real like polished, suave LA guy. Always wore a Yankees hat, had a Rolex, drove like a little Z3 BMW convertible. Always had some bimbo with him. Did cocaine. That was cool. But he always told me that I smelled like shit. I took that to heart. You know, I was like, well, maybe I do. I'd like tell Jenny, I'd be like, hey. She'd be like, how'd the meeting go? I'm like, yeah, they told me that I smelled bad. She's like, God, I've been telling you, you really got to shower. But you know, when you're addicted to heroin, you don't do that. Showering, it's like, it's so like 7 months ago when you're a heroin addict. So I started selling him footage and I started making like pretty good money. You know, I'm selling him footage for like $500. I'm buying the footage from Hatch for like, I think like 150. They're non-exclusive rights, so he retains them. So what happened is I start making like quite a bit of money because I learned that I could call police stations all over the country. I call one in like Wyoming. I'd be dealing with like these like hicks. I'd be like, hello? I'd be like, hey man, I work for a company called Twomp Productions. Remember, that was my production company. And what I do is I had this like whole script that I would say. What I do is I buy clips non-exclusively and I sell them to major networks. You may have heard of Court TV, A&E, Spike Television. You know, it's like a very rehearsed script. Like taking hits or crack and shit while I'm saying it. And you know, the guys will be like, oh yeah? Well, we got some bullfighting. I'm like, no, man, I need like police chases, like, you know, homeless guys stabbing each other with machetes, shit like that. You got stuff like that? And so they'd start giving me like police chases, armed robberies, all this stuff. So when I figured out that I could call police stations and get these, you know, footage that was essentially like public property. Like, we're taxpayers. We pay for that shit, right? It went from being like I was making like a little bit of money on the side when I was selling drugs to like I was making like more money selling footage to Spike TV than I was selling drugs. I was making like $3,500 a week. Legally, like getting checks. I had like a LLC, and then like from that LLC I made a DBA. I got Twomp Production, a fictitious business license. Like I started paying taxes and shit. Keeping track of it, at least. I mean, I didn't pay him. My dad like helped me with that, but it seemed like there might be hope. But behind the scenes, I was like so incredibly on drug, like it was just out of control. I remember one night, and I may have told this before. This isn't like a long story, but I just feel like sharing it. I may have talked about it before. I don't really remember. I was telling Karina, and she's like, "This story sucks." So, you know, she's like, you know, tell my friends that, or she's like, "But tell them the story, and they're gonna tell you you're a fucking bitch." I'm like, all right. It is a bitch story. But this is like how drugged out I was. And like, I don't know, it's just weird. So I remember one night around this time, I wasn't at Preston's dad's house. I was at a motel somewhere. I think I was like maybe going up to Northern California to score. You know, something like that. And I know I was smoking crack. I remember that. I was smoking like a lot. And I was like by myself. She was like sleeping. So I was like up by myself. It's like 6 a.m. Flipping through the channels. Probably beating off to the Girls Gone Wild infomercial. But I get to this movie called Always. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like some movie from like the, I don't know, 80s probably. I think it's a Steven Spielberg movie. It's called Always. Okay? So this movie started out like it was, I don't know, some like lighthearted 80s, like a chick flick, or it like felt like Footloose or something. I was watching it and I was like, all right. I kind of got into it because you can get like, it is possible on crack to kind of like hyper focus on a film or something. So I'm watching it and it's about this guy, and I think it's Richard Dreyfuss, and he's like a pilot that fights forest fires. And he's with this girl that he's like in love with. It's like, they've been married like 10 years. They have like one of those like super unrealistic relationships where like, it's like, damn, Barbara, that's our song. They start like dancing and they still like each other, but it's been like a decade, and you know, it's like, yeah, right, behind the scenes, they're having like threesomes with escorts, you know? That's like the only one. Okay, anyway. So, so they have like this like kind of like not realistic relationship. And what ends up happening is there's this scene where like he's like, you know, he's like a forest firefighter. He's a forest firefighter pilot. So he drives, he pilots airplanes, and they go and they fight forest fires. It's a very dangerous job, by the way. It's, you know, I have friends that do that. A lot of times in state prison, you can go to fire camp and they train you how to do that stuff. So he like goes and fights this dangerous fire. This is probably like the end of Act 1. This is probably like the plot break. Like he almost dies, and you're like, holy shit, he almost died. And like, you know, I'm smoking crack, so I'm like gulping. I'm like, oh man, take another one. Like my heart's pounding. Like, don't die, Richard Dreyfuss. And then he fucking, like his friend's like, oh my god, you made it. And then the fucking airplane blows up. It was like, what the fuck? I'm like checking the TV. I'm thinking the movie's broke. I'm like adjusting. I'm like, that. There's no way he died, man. This isn't that kind of film, you know? And so I'm like, well, okay. He's probably going to come back to life or something. And like, they'll have their song or whatever, and it'll be something cute. Boy, was I fucking wrong. So what happens is this guy, it's like younger, better looking guy, probably has a way bigger dick too. I don't think they ever said that, but I was smoking crack. I'm sure that was like, oh, I bet that guy's got a fucking big old hammer. So this like younger, better looking guy comes. And she's all depressed, Husband died in some tragic fire. Every time the song comes on, she's like, fuck this. She's like drinking scotch. And she falls in love with this younger guy. Right? And I'm like, what the fuck? And so this is the thing about the movie. Her ex-boy, her husband that died, she's a widow. He's like a ghost. And he's like watching her fall in love with this younger dude with the bigger dick. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude. This dude's like into, what's that shit called? Oh God, what is it called? What's that porn called where like you watch your wife fuck someone's weirdo shit? Cuckolding or whatever. He's like into that. No, I don't know. He was just a ghost that was like he was like in purgatory because he was like watching her. He couldn't talk to her. He's like, Barbara or whatever her name was. She falls in love with this younger guy. I like start sobbing uncontrollably. I'm having like a fucking stroke watching. I'm like, I've never been affected by a film on this level. Like, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm crying. Tears are like, spewing out of my eyes like fucking rusty jizz, Just really affected by this, moved. But like in a bad way, because this is like my biggest fear. I'm gonna die, come back a ghost, and my chick's gonna fuck some other guy with a bigger dick. No, it really played on my fear of being cheated on. So I want you to appreciate the fact that I was like in psychosis, and then I see this shit, and it just blew my mind. I was like, Karina, have you ever had a experience like that? She's like, you are a bitch. I'm like, guess not. If I ever die, don't do that shit. I'll fucking haunt you. So that's like the kind of stuff that was going on. It's just like really weird. So this is what ends up happening with Adam and everything. So I start making like real money, and he gets to the point, he's like, hey man, like, you're just like an associate. We'll make you an associate producer. Like come to meetings, like at the studio and like all this shit. At their office buildings down in LA. So I used to go down there, and I'd always bring like CD-ROMs with all the footage that I compiled. I had like a laptop, and I'd call these police stations. I had like a mobile office set up, we were like in motel rooms. Then eventually I was at Preston's house, and that's when I really started doing all this. And I made so much money. That's one of the reasons really that, I had, well, I'm gonna get to that right now. And this does have something to do with Paul, but it takes a while to get there. So I'm making so much money that my drug addiction just like before I was doing a lot of drugs, but like that kind of money, plus I was selling drugs on top of that, it was just absurd. Like drugs, money, and then I went crazy. So it gets to the point where I'm using like, I don't know. I'm kind of like, I told you like the psychosis I'm going through. I'm like accusing her of cheating on me all the time. I'm tripping out. I'm staying up for days at a time. And she essentially demands that I go to treatment. Rehab. Like I'm a drug dealer. She's like living off my lavish drug dealing lifestyle. And she's like, you need treatment. I'm like, oh God, not this shit. I was like, I can't go. No way. She basically says she's not going to be with me unless I go to treatment. And they kind of like force me to go. So I end up going down to Pasadena Recovery Center. It's the same place that they filmed Celebrity Rehab. So I get down there, totally against my will. I have to kick heroin. I have to stop smoking. Really, I'm there to like stop smoking crack. I don't even think she knew that I was doing heroin because I was using the cocaine as like a way to distract her. So I get down to this place and I end up meeting this girl. Let's call her, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a girl name. Let's call her Rachel. Let's call her Sasha. Okay, so I meet this girl named Sasha. So I'm 21 at the time. Jenny's 5 years older than me. She's 26. I meet this girl while I'm there. Her name is, what's the name that I came up with? Sasha. So I meet this girl named Sasha, and basically she was drunk driving, coming home from like a keg party when she was in high school. And she had killed a family of 3. She killed a mom and 2 kids by accident. Horrible thing. I mean, horrible for everything. Horrible that she drank and drive and that happened. Horrible for the family. I mean, my God, could imagine. You know, that's like the most tragic shit ever. I mean, Karina and Nico mean like the fucking world to me. If anything happened to me, it would kill me. I'd kill myself. I would have no reason to live if something happened to my child. Like, I'm not strong enough. I'm a complete fucking bitch. I couldn't hang. I'd probably stab myself in the stomach with a samurai sword. Just be super dramatic about it, like, fuck this. So she's going to prison. She's going to prison. I've only done like county time, but I'm like, hey, I have experience with that shit. And so, I think I told you guys the story about this, but whatever. I'll like get through it real quick so we can get to like the newer stuff. And so basically, she was this girl there that like everybody was trying to get. Like, she was like the prettiest girl there. I mean, she was pretty much like a supermodel, really, to this day. And everybody flirted with her except for me. I had a girlfriend. I didn't even fuck with her like that. And, you know, one day she comes up to me and she's like talking and she's like, hey, how come you never talk to me? And I was like, I don't know. You're too cute. You intimidate me. And she just like started blushing. I like just saw like right there and then that it could happen. So like later that night, they call like, you know, it's time to lights out. We have to go to our like respective corridors. And I just grab her and kiss her. I completely take her by surprise. And like, you know, I mean, girls like that unless they don't, and then you go to jail for shit like that. But she liked it. I mean, it wasn't like non-consensual. She was into it. And I just like grabbed her and like pulled her to me and she kissed me back. And so me and her started, you know, it was like real sleazy the way that it would all go down. Cause we, you know, they'd like put us in like one of those druggy buggy vans and like take us to like, you know, churches to do AA meetings. And I'd be like, I gotta go take a shit. I'd like telling the tech and she'd like be like, hey, I gotta use the ladies room. And then like, it'd be like, I'd be like fucking her doggy style, like the parking lot of some church. There's like, you know, prayer circles like forming around us. And I'm just like, I was like, what? I have no God. I'm atheist. Blah. And like people are like, oh my God, he's a vampire. So this goes on for like, I don't know. I don't know how it happened, why it happened. I'm in rehab. I mean, goddamn, I felt horrible about cheating on her, but I did. That was not the first time either. Or that was the first time, but that was not the last time. So what ends up happening is this goes on for like, I don't know, like a week, 2 weeks. By the way, Jenny's paying for this place. That's how big of a piece of shit I am, but I have really nothing to blame it on. Probably just the drugs and coming off them. And I was a little resentful that she was partying with me, and I guess my partying just got out of control. But I mean, I explained to you why. I'm having like emotional breakdowns because of Richard Dreyfuss films at like 6 a.m. I mean, it's time to go to rehab at that point. And so what ended up happening is everybody at this rehab knew that me and her were like having this affair. She had a boyfriend too. And so what ends up happening is they have family week every Saturday. And I cannot remember if I told you guys this story or not. So they have family week every Saturday. And they, what would happen is like all the families would go in a cafeteria. The rehab would assign who you sit with. Okay. So they'd be like, okay, this family sits with this family, whatever. Her boyfriend came to visit her Jenny came to visit me. They had us all sit together. I swear to God, they did it just to fuck with us. Because everybody at the rehab knew. We would like hold hands and shit. We were just like completely flagrant about it. It was the most awkward lunch ever. Like I'm sitting there and, you know, Jenny's like kissing on me and I'm just like, yeah, I fucking love you. Jordy's boyfriend's like kissing her and she's like, I love you. And we're like mouthing, I'm like, I love you. And she's like, I love you. It was like some disgusting, like, felt like I was in like a Woody Allen movie or something. Okay, so this like black lesbian chick comes up. She was like addicted to PCP. She's like the kind of girl that wore like Dickie shorts that were like super long, had cankles, you know the type. And she comes up and she's like, hey, you know that girl be fucking that boy. You know that, right? Jenny's like, what? And her boyfriend's like wearing a Hurley hat. So I knew that fool wasn't going to do anything. He just kind of like looked at me, probably thinking he was going to get beat up or something by me. And she just stormed out. Instantly, I was flooded with regret, remorse, felt fucking horrible about it. Actually, really, every time I ever did stuff like that back then, it just like completely fucked me up. I have like impulse control problems. And I mean, it's hard to say that when you're forming a side relationship. And nowadays, I'm patently against that. Won't cheat. Will not cheat on Karina. She wrote a term out with me, won't do it. You know, if anyone even like goes there, you know, I'm just like, can't do it. Loyal. But back then I wasn't, you know, and I'm just being honest. This is definitely not something I'm proud of. So she storms out and I actually, you know, screamed at this black chick and made this big whole scene. And I go out, I was like, it's not true, baby. Do you honestly believe that? And she's like, yes. I can't believe you do this to me. How much this place costs? You're such a piece of shit. And she just ended up taking off. Really low moment in my life. Really like looking back, especially the fact that she's passed away. And she was a good person. And she definitely didn't deserve that. Just young and fucking reckless with other people's hearts. And, you know, I've always been scared of people cheating on me. And then I go and I do it myself. Back then, at least. I did it to like all my girlfriends back then. I only got out of that probably like in my late 20s, you know, when I got sober for the first time and I became like a healthy person. I was really selfish back then. So she leaves. This girl, what did we say her name was? Sasha. Sasha's boyfriend, I don't know, he was just a bitch. He like punched himself in the face. Like, I deserve this. So like they didn't really have problems, but I did cut it off after that. And I couldn't really like take it. I was already kind of like building up some, you know, reservations in my mind to leave this place because I felt super uncomfortable. What was interesting is I had just met Adam and I was really starting to make a lot of money and I had talked to him while I was there. You know, we could make phone calls and I talked to him and he was just like kind of lecturing me like, man, do you realize like I'm trying to hand you something. I'm trying to give you a career and you're just squandering it. You know, you're just throwing it away. Looking back, you know, in retrospect, it's absolutely what I was doing. You know, I mean, you know, the whole Spike thing and cop busters and everything, like it really could have taken me in a different direction if I'd allowed it to, but I was battling addiction at the time and I don't know. You know, when you're that age, you have that invincibility thing. You don't really realize that, first of all, you don't realize how badly your actions affect other people. And secondly, you don't think anything bad can ever happen to you. And that's absolutely not true on both fronts. So what had happened there is I'd start Twomp Productions. Now, I didn't have any money or anything, but my mail got forwarded there. So my Twomp Productions credit card showed up. I had like money in the bank. I was making legitimate money. It wasn't all illicit. I don't know what I had. I don't know. I probably had like 15 grand in the bank. So they sent me a credit card with like 5 grand on it. Because credit. But you could get cash advances. As soon as I got my mail and realized that I got a credit card, I took off. Just walked right out. I went to a payphone and I called one of my buddies from Santa Barbara and I was like, hey, I got $5,000. I'm down in Pasadena. Come down here. I need you to pick me up. I'll pay for drugs. Let's rage it. Cool. He comes down. This other heroin addict that I know. The same guy that used to live with me when I was, 16 and 17. The guy I got into heroin with. A guy who's just a complete piece of shit. I won't even say his fucking name, but we can get into what he did much later. But so he picks me up. He had a Jeep Cherokee and, I was like, hey, did you bring anything? He didn't. We went to a gas station. We got the cash advance with the credit card. So we headed to downtown LA, Skid Row, which I didn't have that much experience with at that time. Now, we went down there around maybe 10 p.m., and Skid Row, if you're not from LA, it's just a dilapidated wasteland. It's a bunch of homeless people with camps and, encampments, and it's called Tent City. And it's a bunch of tents that overlap. And you see a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, you'll see people smoking crack. You'll see fist fights. You see a lot of violence down there. You see a lot of IV drug use. You see sex. You see prostitution. You see dudes rolling dice on the sidewalk. I mean, all the cliche shit that you'd see in the ghettos. But it's actually very sad down there. It's a wasteland. And I hadn't gone full dirtbag yet. I was still kind of insulated by the suburban archetype thing. And just very naive. And I went down there with my friend and we were trying to find heroin. We're both heroin addicts. Problem is, back then, there was kind of an unspoken rule about heroin that they didn't sell it at night. You could only buy crack back then. Now meth has taken over, but back then it was crack. So we would be trying to find heroin and all we could find was crack. So we started smoking crack down there. And at one point, a homeless guy takes a razor blade out of his ankle and puts it up to my buddy's neck, threatening that he's going to slit it if we don't give him $5. That's what he asked for, $5. So we gave it to him. We're like, okay, here's $5. And he's like, okay, I won't slit your wrist. And he left. So that happened. And it was just, bunch of weird crack stuff, kind of diving behind dumpsters and hanging out on Skid Row. Completely unsafe. I mean, at any moment we could get killed and they could sell our intestines to fucking, some laid off postal worker that's brokering shit in Portugal or something. Anyway. Eventually I get separated from my buddy. Cop sees me, shines a flashlight on me. He's like, hey man, what are you doing down here? Now I've been smoking crack for 3 hours at this point. Still didn't find any heroin. And I'm like, looking for my brother, man. He's like, shut the fuck up, man. Come here. Put your fucking hands up. I'm like, all right. And he's like, go against the wall. And he just starts frisking me, sticks his thumb up my ass. No, but it's uncomfortable when they're frisking you and touching your ass and shit. It's always some weird predatory gay cop stuff, and you're just like, man, fuck, this checks out. I hope he gives me money. I had a crack pipe on me. We didn't find it for some reason. I think he was looking for a weapon. He ends up putting cuffs on me. This puts me in the back of his cop car. So I'm cuffed. I'm thinking I'm going to jail. And he basically starts telling me that I'm a disgrace to my race, that, he's using a bunch of racial slurs and saying that, you're not supposed to be like the Mexicans and blacks, you're supposed to be an American white boy. Where are you from? And I'm like, Santa Barbara. He's like, you fucking spoiled little prick. And he just took me out of downtown LA, uncuffed me. I thought that dude was going to rape me or something. I was pretty stoked when he did it. It was coming down off crack. I was like, God damn, if a cop rapes me, dude, it's I'm going back to rehab, dude. If you're crying at Richard Dreyfuss movies, you need to go back to rehab. If you get raped by cops coming down off crack, rehab. 2 definites right there. So after that had happened, I went and I stayed with my buddy. That guy, even though he's from Santa Barbara, he was dating a girl down in LA. So he was commuting back and forth quite a bit. He ends up letting me stay at her house. She had this 1 bedroom in Santa Monica or something. I sleep at her house. Jenny's freaking out. You know, I'm missing. She knows that I'm relapsing. I don't want to talk to her. She's like blowing this dude's phone up. Somehow she knows I'm with him. And the next day, my friend's sleeping with his girlfriend. And so like I tiptoe to him. I'm like, hey man. I was like, hey, can I go out down to Skid Row so I can get something? And he just gives me his car keys. He's like, just come back with my car. So I end up taking his Jeep down to Skid Row. I park. Now it's the day. It's easier to get heroin. And that's how I ended up meeting my connection. That's how I got wrapped up in the heroin thing to begin with. You know, I ended up meeting this paisa down there. I got 24 balloons for $100. These multicolored balloons. That's what I caught my case for. Those not those exact balloons, but you know, I dealt with this guy for a couple years after that. And eventually his girlfriend, Diana Ortiz, Goofy, that's who set me up. The reason that I'm telling you this is, you know, at this time period, after I met that paisa, I get back on heroin and now I start selling it. So like it was a completely different trip. Now I'm making even more money, but I'm running, like, I'm not taking my job with Adam as seriously. Like, I'm starting to really slack. I'm not delivering the amount of content that I was before. So I come up with the idea to start making fraudulent content. I'm back on heroin. I'm selling it now and I'm doing crack. I'm like now my heroin addiction is just completely, I never sold it. So I never had like ounces of it and shit where I could just like do it all day and just be fucked up into oblivion. Okay, this time period is exactly what the raw footage that I put on the upper tiers from the documentary. I've put footage from this time period. So you could see what my lifestyle looked like when Jeff and I were living in that house with Jenny and Gabriel was filming us. I was just, you can tell, I'm fucking out of my mind back then. Due to crack and heroin. And so I come up with this idea that, because I don't want to lose the opportunity. It's not even about the money at this point. I'm making so much money selling drugs. It's not about the money. It's more about, I just don't want to lose the connection with this guy. And this is before I had the concept for Cop Busters. And that's when Paul comes back into the story. But, you know, just felt like reliving this time period for a little bit. And so what I did is my mom owned a store. I started going in there and I got like this old camera from the pharmacy that I knew would do like grainy footage. It looked like a security cam footage. And so I would stand up on a ladder and I'd have a real gun and I'd like have my friend get a ski mask. This is like after hours at my mom's shop. Like my friend would like go up to my mom with a gun and like I'd have her be like, no, and I'd be filming it on a ladder. Cracked out of my mind on a ladder with a disposable video camera that I bought for $20 at the pharmacy, filming my mom getting robbed by my friend with a real fucking gun. There's not bullets in it. And then I'd bring that footage to Hatch and I'd be like, can you put security cam 1 and then put like scrolling hours and minutes like you'd see on a security cam footage. I will give you $400 if we sell it. And he's like, okay. And I'd already been paying him for that other footage that I was selling to Spike. So he thought that, you know, I was like trustworthy, but I was just, I don't even think I like intended to burn him. I don't know what happened, but somehow I didn't pay him for that. And I started making these fake, you know, pieces of footage that I was actually selling to Spike. You can see my fake footage on Spike. It's like out of control. But see, Adam started figuring out that I was giving him fake footage. Because like, I think what kicked it off is I met these military guys at this motel. I just drove around looking for like some extras because I came up with this idea that there was gonna, it's like so this is how cracked out I was. I came up with this idea that I was gonna find some guys, give them all ski masks, and we were going to go like behind a grocery store and find like we'll go to a loading dock and find a truck that unloaded crates. Then I was going to like choreograph this whole thing where like these guys in ski masks, they were like these ninja fucking burglars that went around robbing grocery stores. And I just happened to like get all this security cam footage from different grocery stores. And like, I was like thinking in my mind, like you could make like this whole ninja burglar segment on Wildest Moments Caught on Tape. You know, it'd be like, this is real, riveting footage of burglars that go around stealing apples from the back of grocery stores on loading docks. In my mind, it made total sense. I was like, it's unlike anything they've ever seen before. I was wearing like one of those like director hats. I was like, I really think this might be my best work. What do you think, Jenny? And she's like, now she weighs like 80 pounds from coke. She's like, she ended up cheating on me to get revenge on me for fucking that chick at the rehab. And that was very odd because like, I remember we were sleeping over at someone's house one night. We were smoking DMT. We got really into DMT. And she told me that she's like, yeah, this guy, Andy, I went over because I was lonely last night and he like called me and he wanted me to come over and then I smoked DMT with him and then, you know, I don't know, like, I think that he, you know, then he told me to take my clothes off and then, I don't know, like my dick was in his mouth or his dick was in my mouth. She didn't have a dick, promise. And, you know, and then, I don't know, I swallowed his cum. I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, what are you saying? The fuck are you saying? You stupid bitch. I was like, I'm about to make millions off my Ninja Burglar series for Spike. You're fucking stupid. You're cheating on me. She's like, no, it wasn't consensual. I was like, shut the fuck up. And this guy, Andy, was a coke dealer, but he also sold guns, right? So, and he had sold me, this is when I got my 32 Cobra that's in that footage. I had this 32 Cobra. It's like military police gun. I thought I was the coolest motherfucker. I used to listen to Jedi Mind Tricks, and I'd just be listening to it, and I'd like take my shirt off. I had like bitch tits, and I was like all skinny, but I had like tits, because I've always had like abnormally big pecs, but the rest of my dick's like this big, but my pec, like I look like a transgender woman. And so I came up, I was like, I'm gonna kill this guy. I'm gonna go over, like my whole plan was to go over with the gun that he sold me and fucking shoot him because he fucked my chick. Even though I knew that she had sex with him to have revenge, to get revenge on me. Around that, so I was planning this. Like this whole thing was going down where I was gonna go to Andy's house with a gun. I don't think I was gonna shoot him, but that was my plan. That's what I was telling people. I was like telling like all sorts of, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna shoot Andy. I don't care. I'm gonna do it. And then like Adam called me like in the middle of this. So I'm like planning this because now she's like pretty much admitted that she cheated on me with this guy. And I'm like, I'm going to get revenge on him. That's it. I'm getting revenge. I'm going to kill this guy. I don't know if I just wanted to scare him or if I was trying to protect my ego or what the deal is. But I remember Adam called me right around that time and he was like, Ryan, burglar grocery ninjas. I was like, do you want to talk about it? It's like, this is fake. The fuck is this, dude? You're sending me fake footage now? Now, all my other fake footage worked, but this footage in particular was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. I found these military guys. I had them put ski masks on, and then I, like, choreographed this fake fight. It was so ridiculous. One of them had nunchucks and shit that I bought at, like, a kid's... It was, like a Nerf nunchuck set, and, like, I was like, all right. And I was like direct. I seriously thought I was like Quentin Tarantino. I was like, all right, man. Left jab. Should we go with the nunchucks for this scene? Jenny's like, yeah. I'm sorry I sucked Andy's dick. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Don't bring that up now. I was like so mad. And that's how hypocritical I was. I mean, I cheated on her. Then she cheats on me. But I'm mad. And so I had this plan. So Adam is... You know, he knows it's fake. God, I wish I had that footage. Maybe he does. I should ask him. I think he might, you know, I think I might be able to get that. I don't know. Footage is absolutely ridiculous. So he's pretty much telling me that if I do that again, like that's it, because the network is getting pissed. Spike, like, I gave that to Hatch to edit, so I present him that footage with like a straight face. I'm like, yeah, this is Grocer Ninja Warriors. It's It's my best work, Adam. And he's like, not in crack delusion, la la land. And he's like, Ryan, this is the fakest shit I've ever seen. But do you expect me to believe there's some like group of vigilante, like burglar grocery shop crooks? Yes. It's like, why are you talking like that, dude? I was like, it's just my process, Adam. It's just my process. So while all this is going on, I'm planning my revenge on Andy. I'm telling everyone I'm going to shoot him. And that's the problem. It's like I always run my fucking mouth, and then it kind of like forces me to have to do something because now I've said it. And you're probably like at the end of this story because we're going to wrap up for right now, but we'll continue it in the next Paul saga because he's about to come in, and I can probably wrap it up in a couple videos. You know, I'm gonna talk about going to Burning Man and some of my fonder memories with him, and then how he died, and then that's the end of it. But and then we'll go back to the other stories once I'm done with this. But I just figured hook you guys up. This will probably go on YouTube as well at some point. You're probably wondering like why at the end of the video it kind of like got so disorienting, you know, kind of like I'm jumping like back and forth. I just want you to really get an understanding of like what it was like for me then. You know, it may sound weird how I'd like jumping from back and forth, and like then it kind of just blends together. But I want you to really understand like what the disarray of my mind was like at that point, because I was really having a hard time with crack, and it puts you in just a very weird head place. Anyway, love you guys so much, and I really appreciate you. That's it. Palabra.